Bill headed to the Oregon Senate would allow law enforcement to use drones when responding to 911 calls. It's something police say would increase safety for officers and the community.
But some are concerned the potential surveillance could become an invasion of privacy. Fox 12's Julia Lopez joins us live from the Washington County Sheriff's Office. Julia, what can you tell us?
Well, the Washington County Sheriff's Office says that there's absolutely been situations where using drones has helped to avert a potential use of force situation, for example. So this bill would help keep the community safer. Today, I also heard from the ACLU of Oregon, who say that they feel that the lines of when it's appropriate to fly could quickly become blurred, leading to surveillance in anticipation of a crime. Police drones could become a lot more common. Right now, police need a warrant to fly a drone, with the exception of a search and rescue operation or emergency. Senate Bill 238 would expand drone use to responding to 911 calls or a situation where personal safety or property is at risk.
So that could be pretty much any protest or large public gathering where maybe someone or something might get damaged. And again, any 911 call, that's a lot of times you're going to see drones flying all around town. So what's at risk is pervasive aerial surveillance.
Michael Abrams with the ACLU calls this bill a blank check for police.
And it's not just folks who are, at the scene where the police are responding, but think about bystanders. You could be a neighbor of someone and suddenly there's a police drone overhead watching what you're doing in your backyard. Or maybe you're at a protest and there's a drone flying overhead. You might have no way of even knowing that it's there.
Deputy David Huey with the Washington County Sheriff's Office says drones have been a vital tool in recent years, and in tactical situations, lessens the risk of an officer, a suspect, or a community member getting hurt.
The drones bring a pretty awesome perspective to that call for service and offers an element of that safety component where it maybe sees something that the canine handler doesn't see, so we can look ahead and see kind of what's out in front of them.
If the bill passes, Huey says drones would be used in criminal or emergency situations and doesn't think there would be a noticeable increase in the sky.
Surveillance is not something that we do. We don't use a drone to establish probable cause or reasonable suspicion of a crime. That's just not something we do.
Abrams says the bill leaves too much unknown. They support police effort for safe and efficient responses for everyone, but say this bill was written without community input.
We think that's a conversation that needs to happen between the communities and law enforcement, especially when we're talking about communities of color that have been over-policed, often without consultation. I see this as a sort of opening Pandora's box, and once you open this box, it's going to be very hard to put drones or any of the data they've collected back in there.
Senate Bill 238 passed the Senate Judiciary Committee yesterday 5-1 and is now headed to the Senate floor. Reporting live in Beaverton, Julia Lopez, Fox 12 Oregon.